Today, I have a past public speaking student with me, Ivan Bobkov, who is a first-year medical student. And we are here to talk about some stereotypes about medical students, but really our main idea is how to survive your first year. Because Ivan, you're almost there. First year of medical school is almost over. And I know you have some tips in 3 big areas for students who are thinking about going to medical school or are just about to enter medical school that they can learn from you. But let's first talk about the stereotypes. Like, I need to know, when you look at TV shows and medical students are involved, they're always exhausted. They look like they're a hot mess. They don't sleep. They only eat junk food. You'll never see them again until after medical school if you're not in medical school with them. From your experience, are any of these true, or what has it been like for you?
First of all, I'd like to take a moment to thank you for having me on. It's really nice to see you again. And so I definitely think some of those are true. I definitely think some of those are not so true, but it's a spectrum where there's a balance between all of them. So the sleeping, looking exhausted, I think I'm a very good example of that right now. Medical students are extremely busy. I know we don't always have time for friends and family, but if you make it a priority, which I think you really should, then you'll definitely have time to see everybody. It just might be a little longer between seeing them. In terms of food, I personally like to cook for myself, so that kind of gives me a break in the day. Most people in my class are pretty relaxed in terms of that, so we definitely have time to eat nice. Sleeping, very important. In the beginning, I used to have a little trouble because I was trying to cram in all my studying. Don't do that anymore. Take my full 8 to 9 hour sleeps every single day.
I would never imagine that there would be cooking time involved in your first year of medical school. So it's not as extreme as we think. Certainly healthy habits are possible, but even you touched on sleep is affected. Just like in any new transition in life, sleep can be affected too. So thank you for sharing and debunking some of those myths and letting us know where there are perhaps some elements of truth to it. You want to share 3 areas that will be helpful for students to survive their first year. And those 3 areas are social elements, academic elements, and then the third one is the balance between those two. So let's start with the first one, social life, your social support, your network. What would you say is the absolute first thing that people need to do?
So when you enter medical school, you have a time of about 2 weeks before classes start, where it's onboarding and it's getting to know everybody. The most important thing I think you can possibly do in those 2 weeks is establish who you are amongst all your classmates, so that later, when you don't have as much time to introduce yourself, to get to know everybody, you already have that groundwork laid in.
So everyone that would be going into medical school, right? Or they're going to start their first year. You go around, you say hello, you introduce yourself to everybody, great. People know your name and they know your face. Like, they know this is Ivan, this is Tatiana. And obviously you do it with a friendliness and something memorable and just letting people know who you are and that you're interested in connections. But we all know it's not possible to connect strongly to everybody. So then what would you say is the next part of this social support, social network development piece in med school?
So med school will never work unless you have a core group of people supporting you. And that's the reason the social aspect should always come first. So once you went around to everyone, you introduced yourself, it's time to settle into a friend group, you know? It's gonna happen naturally, but you want to keep your eye open to who you want to surround yourself with every day. Everyone in med school is very smart, very intelligent. It comes down to personal traits and who you mesh with at that point. Anytime I spend time with people, it's usually with those people. Whether that's every other day, that depends on the course load at that moment. I would say on average, I see them a good 3 to 4 times a week at least. Some of my friends go to lecture most days, and so if I want to spend some time with them, I can always swing by to lecture in the morning and study with them there.
Area number 2 then is the academic piece. And this is about how to do well, because obviously you need to do well in medical school to move forward. So how do you set yourself up to have academic success?
So now that you've got like that social support established, you got your friend circle established, whenever you go to class, you see everyone, they know who you are, it's nice. Obviously, the most important part about medical school is the school itself. and you have to do well. So that starts with setting up a good study routine early. And that's going to change throughout the course of the year, the 4 years. That's all going to change. But it's good to establish something early on that you can stick to for at least a couple weeks just to see if that works for you. Because there's going to be a crazy amount of information packed into every single day. So you want to have a good framework of how you're going to compartmentalize that information in your head. Don't fall behind in lectures. It's not exactly a study habit, but because of the insane amount of material that you're being presented with, it is so crucial to not fall behind on lectures, because once you build up 4, 5, 6 lectures behind, now you have to take care of all those in the day before your exam instead of reviewing information that you've already learned. And the information is very dense as well. It's not just fluff.
Now let's head up to big area number 3, which is the balance between the two, between the social and the academic, because we're a whole person. We're not just in need of emotional, social support, and we're not just trying to grow our minds and develop our careers, like a whole being. Ivan, how have you done it? How have you been able to stay healthy and had some time to enjoy yourself too while achieving your goals? So tell us your secrets.
I think one of the things that they always say about medical students is about burnout. And that applies to doctors, that applies to medical students, that applies to residents, it even applies to college students. And I think being able to put the book down is a skill that you need to develop very quickly in medical school. Otherwise, you do risk that burnout feeling. And I know for myself, I definitely at one point in late last semester started feeling that a little bit because there was not as much time to put the book down. So I needed to restructure my study techniques. But whether it's making a plan a couple weeks in advance with your friends, maybe making Friday afternoons or Friday nights the one day out of the week that no matter what you're doing in school, you take a break, go out with your friends, have a good time, go see a movie or something. I think that is what you have to absolutely do. Otherwise, there's very little chance of you making it out not hating what you're doing. You gotta do this consistently, on a consistent basis. You can't just schedule a week's vacation 3 months from now and expect that will last you however many more months before the next big thing. I think it has to be at least an every week kind of thing where you do something, either social if you're a social person, or a personal thing if you're a personal person.
I think I also see areas where we can use our social network to help us build our academic life, and vice versa too. So maybe we can incorporate study sessions and fun with those same people, so that it's not one thing is over here, one thing is over here, and they're separate, but rather they're linked up. So that's probably why it's so important to build those social networks, because we really need them to survive this time period.
And I think that on the topic of taking a bigger break sometimes, I think just this past, I think it was March, my friends and I from school from here, there were 19 of us, and we actually all went to the Dominican Republic together as a big group for 4 or 5 days, and that was just really nice because afterwards it was this big reset moment where we came back and it was like, okay, we can do this, we can keep going, and it was just really nice to have that.
That's amazing. No, I agree with you. Whether it's driving down in our same area, but just getting away, just unplugging, disconnecting, because like you said, it helps us to reset, and then we have renewed energy to keep going with our goals.
I think one thing I would leave anyone listening with is to really work hard to enjoy your time, because it's 4 years, it's no joke, and you don't want to just waste 4 years like that. I think you should really take advantage, and as long as you have a good friend group, I think you should really work hard to enjoy those 4 years, because I know I have at least my first one, and I'm planning on keeping that up for the next 3.
Ivan, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I hope that this episode is helpful to any of you thinking about going to medical school or already about to start your first year, because I'm sure this stuff applies even if you've already started. And like you said, Ivan, this also applies to college students, so it's a great message for all of us. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate the messaging.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.